let's talk about AP Statistics as a course. What is this course, and what are we trying to teach you here, and how is it different from the math you've learned so far? Well, this is the part of math that is most applied in the world as far as I can tell. So let's say you're trying to prove that something is true in psychology. You grab a whole bunch of people off the street and you ask them a bunch of questions about their eating habits. And you're trying to figure out if eating habits has anything to do with how many children you have. Well, you're going to get results. You're going to try to interpret those results. And the gathering of those results and the interpreting of those results are what this course is about. This has applications in psychology. Given that we're in election season right now, it has applications for how people do polls to figure out how people are going to vote. It has applications in industry where you want to see how reliable your machines are at producing high quality chocolates. What percentage of them come out not good after all. So it's very widely applicable. It's all about gathering data and interpreting data. So in situations where we don't actually know what the reality is, and all we have to rely on is the data we can gather, so which is not all of reality. So the course really breaks down into four parts. The first of which is the smallest, the funnest, and I think the easiest, the most enjoyable, which is how do we gather data. In Chapter 4, we'll be dealing with how to gather the data we want to gather, how to avoid making errors in our method that will sort of disqualify our data from being accurate. In chapters 1 through 3, we'll describe data. We'll talk about mean, standard deviation. We'll talk about common shapes of data, shapes that seem to show up all the time. And in chapters 5 through 7, and patterns in 1 through 3, commonly seen patterns. Chapters 5 through 7, what did we expect? That's more about, in certain situations where we know the rules of the situation, what sort of results do we get? And also, when we do a survey, how much is typically missed by? How much do our results of any survey typically miss the truth? And then in chapters 8 through 12, we'll talk about drawing conclusions from the data, right? We can't draw conclusions until we know what we expected. But when we do that, we will talk about confidence intervals. When you build a range of reasonable possible truths given what you're... So you do a survey, you find that Clinton's ahead of Trump by 5%, and you say, well, it's probably not exactly 5%, and you sort of build a range of how much you think you may have missed by reasonably. Or where you try to show that things are unlikely to be true, or likely to be true. You have all that in chapters 8 through 12. So that's basically the course. And we'll start with chapter 4. There's going to be a heavy emphasis throughout the course on vocabulary and on stating your answer correctly, using the right words at the right time, because the AP exam, it has a multiple choice section, but there isn't really that much math. There's a heavy emphasis on knowing your words and using them right. And so we're going to hammer vocabulary pretty hard, and we're going to hammer usage vocabulary pretty hard. And in chapter, keep track of the vocabulary I go over in these videos, because in chapter 1, probably halfway through chapter 1, I'm probably going to give you guys a vocabulary quiz on stuff from chapter 1 and chapter 4 to see if you're using your words right, see if you can spot the sentences that make no sense.